as we investigate further, we could find more issues with the building. The Napier Visitor Centre is seen as the gateway information centre to the Hawke's Bay region, which supports the importance of having Napier as a Tier 1 visitor centre. If Napier Visitor Centre is not a Tier 1 site, the city and region will lose a presence and an active footprint within the national network and marketing influence from Tourism New Zealand, promoting our region to domestic and international visitors. With international borders opening up to the world, it is anticipated from the industry that cruise ships will come back to the Napier Port for the 22-23 summer season, and once again start contributing to the Napier and Hawke's Bay economy. The current location has supported a positive platform for economic benefit to be felt across the region. If the eyesite was to be moved to an alternative location, there is the possibility of detrimental effect to the cruise day operations. This could negatively impact the economic benefit the visitor centre generated in pre-COVID years, where it was economically assessed to be $16 million to the region in a 2017 assessment, and the wider $25 million felt in the last 2019-2020 cruise season. Building a tourism hub in the current location will enhance and grow the Visitor Information Centre revenue, ability and economic benefit to Napier and Hawke's Bay. Further, a new build would support the Tier 1 model, but also eliminate what appears to be a growing remedial program for the current Visitor Information Centre. The current remedial program is estimated to only prolong the current asset for a further estimated 10-year period, resulting in further capital investment in future years.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Gregory? Councillor Tapine.
Ngā mihi.
Sure.
Thank you for that report, and I'm looking forward to us being able to progress to the next stage. I note with interest that we seem to be reasonably fixed on the current location, and your comments around the impacts of a potential move. So I'm also cognizant of the fact that with the relaxing international restrictions around the world, that we may get a splurge of people wanting to get out of their own country and visit others, which may increase our tourist numbers over that forecasted period. And I'm also cognizant of the fact that in the past there have been some expressions around, particularly at the current location of our eyesite, being able to facilitate our tourist providers, traffic flow, risk associated with that site. So will those sorts of questions be addressed in detail in the business case, or did the review that was referred to identify quite clearly that building in its current location was the best option?
Through the Chair, thank you, Councillor Tapine. Yes, so look, we did assess all that. In the location assessment, we put some real robustness with those criteria. And from memory, I think it was 8 to 9 other locations around the CBD that were thoroughly assessed. I think what really lends its favour to the current location is the location. It is along the Golden Mile, our marine parade. When you look at cruise operations, they don't have to veer too far off. It's a very direct route, and I suppose you've got to consider here these tour operators operate on a 30-minute an hour long tour guide session. Now, if we were to change the location and they get stuck in traffic, for example, in the CBD, that would affect their operations and turnaround of tours. Where they are, where the eyesite is to the forecourt to where they currently pick tourists up, it's very direct and easy. Like, I'm not saying it's perfect, it does need some more work-ons, but it is the most direct and easy location for cruise operations and for, dare I say, for everybody to get a real bang for buck, for time, for dollar value. And I think what it really is lending itself to is that tourism hub. I mean, you think of the foot traffic that it lends to there. We're at the top of the CBD, where it's a natural civic strategy of building people up onto the marine parade. It's in our opinion, and through the officers that marked the criteria of all the locations that lent itself to the most favourable.
Thank you.
I just wanted to comment about the ownership of Conservation House by Mana Ahuriri. This is new information that when the review was done the review did not take that into consideration because it hadn't actually happened. But while this recommendation favours the current site, I'm hoping that with the business case there will also be a close examination and discussion with Mana Ahuriri if they're interested in looking at the Conservation House site. Because for me, if we were to develop a hub from the whole region, I can see the advantage in having a partnership with Māori and Māori tourism if Mana Ahuriri were interested in such as part of the package. Also, Conservation House is very close, of course, to the MTG and the Century Theatre, which are council-owned facilities which also might be able to be utilised. So while I'm not speaking against the resolution, which favours the current site, I'm hoping and I'm sure there's going to be a robust discussion with Mana Ahuriri and the staff about the possibility of us looking favourably at Conservation House as part of the business case.
Thank you, Councillor Bogue. I think through the business case, all stakeholders are going to be discussed and involved in depth, and absolutely, regardless of where the information centre is, Mana Ahuriri or Mana Whenua will be discussed or brought into those conversations. And with the rebranding going into a tier 1, we want to tell our story more as a city and as a region, and that's one of the key things in the Eyesight Future Network strategy, is for each area in New Zealand to tell their story better. It has been noted and identified that we're not doing that as well, and through the tier 1 model, here's a very exciting opportunity for us to do that.
Thank you. Mayor Wise?
Thank you, through the chair. So with regards to the National Network Review and the opportunity to become a tier 1 model, do we have any set timeframes that have actually been dictated at a national level around the ability to be involved in that?
I'll leave that to...
Yeah, through the chair. Mayor Wise, we are still waiting for central government decision. So the Eyesight New Zealand have applied to central government for some funding to help rebrand, tell every regional story, that sort of thing. We are really close to a decision. I mean, obviously the budget announcement will come out sort of mid-May, so we're hoping in the next even few days or maybe a couple of weeks we will actually hear a decision. So we are very confident, but we still have to get the final decision. Yeah.
Thank you. And I think I read in the paper that we would be potentially getting up to 50% of the rebranding cost funded through that national, right?
That's right.
And I guess what would be very, very helpful to know when these decisions are made is if there's any risk associated with us not having the ability to participate depending on the timing of the development of the eyesight. So yeah, it'll be helpful to actually have those timelines in front of us. And sorry, just through the chair, another question. Just with regards to the existing facility, I note that there has been $100,000 of urgent remedial work identified, with a little bit of a disclaimer in there that may be more as work is undertaken. Just wanting to confirm, so that is in addition to the current renewals in our long-term plan of $590,000 and $164,000 of minor capital works?
Through the chair, is that for this financial year or just for the LTP long-term plan?
So I guess that's the question. So is the 100,000 the immediate in the upcoming year, and
Yes.
is that in addition to what was already included
No,
in LTP?
It's inclusive.
Inclusive. Okay. Thank you very much.
Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Just a question around the Morris Lowe report. It identifies a challenge workshop took place. Most of the participants were internal of council. Have Tourism Hawke's Bay or iwi been involved in the initial discussions?
Through the chair. So predominantly with S17As, it is when you get to a challenge workshop, it is a internal process. We are obviously invited Councillor Crystal and Councillor Price, who did attend. Hamish Sexton, the CEO of Hawke's Bay Tourism, both Jane and I have been keeping him posted with all the details of the review. Myself personally, I'm on the Hawke's Bay Tourism board, and everybody is very eager and interested how this committee plays out. Everybody is hugely supportive of the Visitor Information Centre. They know how vital it is to tourism, domestic and international, to the region. So at this point in time, no, iwi have not been discussed as part of the review, but that is certainly our intention if we're given the opportunity to develop a business case.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Morena, thank you team for the report. I was just wondering if you could spend some time talking us through the potential for the business case. I'm always wary of business cases. So I suppose if you could talk us through what that development process will look like, and also what sort of help we're expecting as council to get out of that in terms of the next decision points. I note those in the paper, and so just interested in how deep they'll go into building options, alternative locations, and if the building options, I suppose in particular, we'll be looking for some guidance through the business case on.
Yeah, through the chair, I have to be honest with you, I can't give you absolute detail what the business case detail would look like, and we've obviously just indicated some very broad, high-level things we do want it to cover. I suppose once we go out to a tender, we would go into further detail there. But yes, concept design, business operations, business model. You know, with S17As, the whole point of them is coming up with the most cost-effective model you can. We want the Visitor Information Centre. We want the PAR 2 businesses to be self-sufficient. We want them achieving their funding policies, and where and when possible, we want them generating net profit. By us achieving net profit allows us to keep rates down for our community. Obviously, we will give some guidance around, we want further assessment on locations, on a location assessment. Yeah, all that detail work is obviously not been thought to the extent until we get that approval.
Councillor McGrath.
Yes. Morning. Just further to that, do we have a cost for a business case? Do we know how much a business case will cost? And do we have funding for the business case?
Through the chair, good question. I suppose the short answer is, without looking at budgets, no, we don't probably have a budget for a business case. We have funded the S17A largely through business excellence and corporate services, where they have put aside budget for S17A reviews. From memory, the S17A was roughly 30 to 40,000. I would assume a business case would be roughly in that same ballpark as well.
And just further to that, are we allowed to move recommendations if they're not funded?
Through the chair, so in the case of a business case being approved today, I would fund that through the Chief Executive's strategic fund. I would have to question and would have to come back to you about the cost of that though, because I think giving a ballpark figure today is probably not appropriate. Thank you.
And just one more. I'm just wondering around the rest of the world, are cruise ships starting to take off around the rest of the world currently?
Through the chair, absolutely. I think Carnival Cruises have reported that they've had the highest demand that they've ever had in the whole of their history. We have a number of cruise ship bookings at the Napier port. We have been told that they're probably placeholders at this stage, so don't get too excited, but they are putting the cruise in their budget for next year, so 22-23, they are actually putting some cruise ship visits in, so we absolutely are 100% sure that we're going to get them. But there's just one little problem, that the maritime border isn't open at this stage, but the word is that that decision has been made, the announcement just hasn't been made public.
Oh, we're waiting an announcement for an announcement.
Oh yes, Councillor Price.
Just looking through this paper, and you might be able to correct me, but are you comfortable there won't be a budget blowout doing the patch up of the building that we've got? Because to me, it looks quite small or large. And what's your comfort zone on that? That's putting you on the spot.
Through the chair, yes. There is always that potential. I'm trying to just be tactful here. There is still some unknowns. Yes, the building assessment was incredibly thorough. We've got some very damning proof of wood chip samples where the wood is rotted away within the frame of the building. As I said earlier, we're not going to get a full picture until we start pulling walls down or significant parts of the building to get that. I think we just have to be prepared that it could be higher. But to be fair, there is uncertainty. We've been quoted of around that 100,000 mark, but there is certainly the potential.
So do you have a plan B where you would relocate if it is disastrous?
Yes, we have, Jane and I have discussed some other locations. With some of the remedial work it has been identified that we may have to relocate out of the eyesight for an 8-week period, but we're still talking about that, whether we can eliminate having to do that. We're just still going through those discussions, but we do have a place in sight, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Through you, Madam Chair. It strikes me that the efficiencies gained by Pārtu and eyesight being co-located could be achieved with another activity, and I just wondered, has any work gone into what the current building or building site could be used for if it was to be moved? So I suppose the opportunity cost of keeping it there?
Yeah, I suppose through the chair, by merging the two, I mean, we've felt quite strongly of merging the two cost centres. It hasn't made sense having the two separate cost centres. If we do get the ability to build a tourism hub, having it all under one appropriately designed building, having the two operate out of the same doors per se, we lend ourselves to lease revenue, anchor tenants. We could do more with that building. We could have a cafe there, wine bar, or have another business operate out of some of the building space that we could design.
Right. Yes, Councillor Crystal.
There's a lot of talk through the chair. There's a lot of talk in the report about the tourism hub concept, and I know we talked about this in the workshop. But is there actually any interest from any other tenants? Because I know that was a way that we could help fund the whole eyesight concept. And so have you had any interest?
Through the chair, I don't think it's probably been appropriate for us to have any discussions until we've got approvals to have those formal discussions. No, we haven't discussed with any local providers or any other businesses to date.
Okay. And just for Jane, how many actual cruise ships have been booked? Because I know that Auckland only has 13 on their books at the moment, so is that the same here?
Through the chair, the last couple of days ago, we checked the schedule. 93
Okay.
were booked in.
Or Napier.
But as I say, that's placeholders only, so don't get too excited. Yeah.
Councillor Tapine?
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Just with a follow-on really as a result of the questions that we've had this morning and the indications in the report, while it seems to indicate we've set a pathway to which we'd like to stick, i.e. put together a business case at the current location and work within those known variables, if you were to rate your openness as a team between 1 and 10 on likelihood, no, not likelihood, but as we get into that business case, I'm conscious we haven't spoken to some key parties, that we're still looking to engage a number of key stakeholders, and yet we seem to be indicating we're fixed at a location and the current footprint. And so how much scope is there as we continue to work with our community, is there for us to consider options outside of what we're indicating here? So I just want to know, how much flexibility do we have going forward? Because it sounds like we're pretty keen on building where we are, and yet we haven't really spoken to everyone.
Through the chair, I mean, this is what an S17A does. It fleshes this all out. We've gone through officers, expertise, with a challenge workshop, for example. We've got a range of experts within the whole business, sit down, put through all the detail, and we come out with a preferred model. The S17 process is very robust through the options analysis process and the challenge workshop. So in essence, you walk out of that challenge workshop pretty much throwing the kitchen sink at the preferred option. And if it survives, which it has.
Thank you. That was good clarity around the Section 17. Thank you.
Could I just say that the Conservation House, the ownership of Conservation House was not announced really until this year, so that might change the picture. But just to remind councillors, we are double debating this. It will be signed off one way or the other on the 2nd of June at our council meeting. So if there are any questions or action points that you would like covered before then, there is an opportunity in that time frame. So I would like, it would be good if the staff had an opportunity to actually meet with Liz Munro from Mana Ahuriri Trust, if possible. And perhaps I think also there's a question about the cost of the business case, which is recommended in this officer's recommendation. So if there's no further questions, the officer's recommendation has 3 parts. And we'll move on to voting for that. That the Napier People and Places Committee approve the S17A eyesight service delivery review and recommendations, approve the development of a business case for a Tier 1 Visitor Information Centre for consideration in the 2024-25 long-term plan, approve investigation of building options to accommodate a Tier 1 Visitor Information Centre to remediate, redevelop or new build for consideration in the 2024 long-term plan. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Yes. The Mayor moves it. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Simpson, would you like to speak to that?
Thank you, through the chair. We are a tourism city, and I think we definitely need to be looking to the future. The eyesight is a vital part and a vital asset in terms of servicing the tourists that come and visit us, and we know that the cruise ships will be coming back at some stage. It may not be this year, but it will happen, and we need to ensure that we have got a very well-equipped tourism hub to deliver on not only the international tourists but also domestic tourists. We know that domestic tourists actually form the biggest component of our visitors to the city, and locals access it as well. So I fully support us taking the next steps and actually preparing this business case, which will inform the future decision making.
Thank you. Would you like to speak, Councillor Simpson?
Can I reserve my right?
Yes. Are there any other speakers? Councillor McGrath.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with the eyesight. The report says it has got diminishing numbers. There's competition now to eyesights, being Google and phones and booking on ships. So I'm struggling with the fact that we're looking to build an eyesight on probably our most prime patch of land in Napier. I would be happier if we were talking about building a restaurant, cafe, and or bar featuring an eyesight. And I'm not saying a second-hand eyesight, a decent one, but I think we're kind of getting it round the wrong way, where we've got an eyesight and now we're trying to fill it up and justify how it works by putting a hub in there. And to me, we're a little bit round the wrong way, and I'd like to see maybe a little bit more information on how we could change that around for the business case. So I am going to support it today, but I'm going to do a lot of thinking between now and our next council meeting of where and what we're actually going to end up with and for who.
Are there any other speakers? Councillor Simpson, do you want to?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the report and the work that's been done to date. I think it is an important investment for our city and for the region. I think we have to be very careful not to reflect on the last 2 years, because I think that would be poor judgment. I think we have to look forward, and I think it's really essential that we provide a quality service point, regardless where it ends up being. But we need to ensure that people who arrive ad hoc at our city, and there are many that do that, who then want guidance and advice, I think we need a first-class facility to service that need. I am mindful that amalgamating the two business units, we may be hiding our golden goose. There's not very many business units in council that return a 200% return on investment, income over expenditure. So I think we have to be very careful that we aren't using one business unit to hide the inefficiencies or ineffectiveness of another business unit. So I think we have to be mindful of that as we go through this process. But I certainly support the work that's been done to date and the need for us to invest in this venture going forward.
Right, we've had 3 speakers in favour. Did you want your right of reply, Madam, or are there any speakers against? No?
Well, thank you, through the chair. I just wanted to comment, whilst I appreciate Councillor McGrath's concerns with regards to the future of eyesights, we have been presented with a national network review that has identified the future pathway for eyesights, and in particular has focused on having a real local branding aspect, which I see has some huge potential in terms of what we could deliver in the future. And I guess for me, one of the key components of this report is that we're looking at a tourism hub, and I see the business case as being the vital part to actually start identifying what will sit within that tourism hub. And absolutely, it could be cafe, restaurant, etc. And the eyesight will be a component of that. So we don't even yet know actually how much of it will be dedicated to an eyesight or how much of it will be available for other opportunities. So that for me is why this next step is so important, so that we can really drill down and identify exactly what would be the best product for us to deliver from this tourism hub, whether it be at the current site or whether we do have ongoing discussion around location, but acknowledging that the 17A review has sort of clearly identified the current site as being the best one. But no, I'm really looking forward to the business case being completed and having further information brought back to us. So thank you.
Right, I'd like to put the officer's recommendation then. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. The recommendation is carried. Thank you very much indeed. Our next item is the Welcoming Communities Accreditation application, and we have Natasha Mackey to present. Thank you, Ms. Mackey.
Atamarie, koutou katoa, kua tai mai nei I tēnei hui, Ko Natasha Maki tōku ingoa. Today's paper is to seek approval for us to make an application to the Welcoming Communities Accreditation Program. And before I go on, we have a short video to show you, to give you a bit of a taste of what Welcoming Communities is all about.
From the far north to the deep south, from tangata whenua to our newest Kiwis, Aotearoa New Zealand is home to people and cultures from around the globe. Our diversity is our strength. It's what makes us a vibrant and attractive place to be. But people don't just move to a place, they move to communities. So how we choose to welcome and include new people into those communities is up to all of us. That's why we're inviting you to join Welcoming Communities, Te Waharoa ki ngā hapori. As a town, city or region, becoming a welcoming community shows your commitment to diversity and inclusion. It means putting out the welcome mat so people from all cultures and backgrounds see you as a welcoming place to live, learn, work and visit. As a welcoming community, you'll have access to resources, practical tools and expert guidance that will help support the good work you're doing. You'll be able to celebrate your successes, share your innovative ideas and learn new approaches with councils and communities around the country. You can also choose to be accredited according to our national standard, so you can share pride in your progress, grow your welcoming practices and unlock the social, cultural and economic potential of your communities. Being a welcoming community means building a positive, welcoming reputation. It's practicing manaakitanga by showing that your community is welcoming to everyone, no matter where you're from or what language you speak. And importantly, it means partnering with mana whenua and others in your community to make the places we love more welcoming and inclusive for everyone. Because here in Aotearoa, welcoming communities are stronger communities. So join us by searching Welcoming Communities New Zealand.
My work here is done? Oh, okay. So as the video said, the Welcoming Communities Accreditation Program supports and assesses a community's welcoming practices. It provides a resource to help build understanding and tolerance within communities and also to celebrate diversity. Napier has got some work to do in this area. And you will see in the report that we've identified the social monitor results around this issue. And one of the key pieces of data that we took notice of excuse me, was the fact that just under half respondents talked about either seeing or experiencing intolerance or prejudice. And that was in the previous 3 months for the survey. We think that's actually quite high, and also the other piece of information there was about how the community felt diversity added to the community's well-being. And so I think both of those things indicate that we have a bit of work to do in this area, but also coupled with the fact that Napier is actually becoming more diverse ethnically. So we were already set to develop the multicultural strategy, and you're all aware of that, and we've had some strong community feedback that that's what the community wants us to do. And we also support a range of events and projects and a part of a number of forums around multicultural issues. So we see this application as a way of providing a dedicated resource to progress this work. And it would mean that we were able to employ a part-time coordinator and be part of a national network. So over to you.
Thank you. There has been a gap there, hasn't there, Ms. Mackie, since we disestablished, or the disestablishment of the Hawke's Bay Settlement Forum, and that's been quite a noticeable gap.
Yes, I think through the chair, that's a really good point, that we coordinated the settlement support service from Napier City Council up until its disestablishment, and that was really recognising that Napier was a really diverse multicultural community, and we were part of this program developing in terms of providing advice to the pilot and the way that this has actually developed since then. So kind of makes sense that we become part of the program as well.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Natasha, I had a few questions on this paper. I note that we were involved in the advisory committee in 2017, but now's the first time we're applying for membership. Is that correct?
Yes, it is correct.
And what is the reason for that delay, I suppose, between it being created and our application?
I think it's just really to do with priorities and the work program that we were undertaking at the time.
Okay. I noted in the video that there was a mention that you could apply as a region. Have we investigated doing it as Hawke's Bay?
Through the Chair, no, we haven't. We understand that Hastings has recently become accredited. That could be a second phase, but at this stage, they've already gained their grant, and so we're seeking to do the same. I think there's some merit, however, in collaboration across the region, and we can look at that as part of the program.
Okay. And through you, Madam Chair, my final question was just, I see, and you've just mentioned it, that the intention would be to employ a new part-time resource. Being that we're only provided 3 years worth of that level of funding, do you see that being a fixed term new role, or do you have a succession plan as such?
Through the Chair, I think yes, initially a fixed term role, but as the strategy develops, there may be an opportunity to provide that resource in an ongoing scenario, particularly as we may be able to get further external funding.
Yeah, and as part of that indication that you would employ an additional resource, have you done a bit of internal looking at your current capabilities to see if that was something we could manage within our existing team's timeframe, and therefore put more funding into some of the more seen projects and things like that?
That's a good question. So we do see that the rest of the team would support this role. So, and we had already had the development of the multicultural strategy on our work program for beginning next year. So, July. So I think the role would be supported by the rest of the team, and by having this role, it will actually allow us to progress the projects as well as develop the strategy. So it becomes a bit more of an iterative approach.
Thank you.
Any other? Oh, sorry, Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Deputy Mayor answered or asked part of my question around the more FTE, so that's good that it's been covered off. Just a question around the survey. Obviously, if we're going to put new capacity in, we're going to look at results. This survey was only effectively started in 2020, so I assume this version's the second iteration. Is it likely that we will continue to run the survey every year?
Yes, through the Chair. Actually, the survey's been running for over a decade, but the set of questions that we've included around diversity were included in the last survey, and we would continue to ask the same set so that we get some kind of indication of progress.
Thank you.
Councillor Tapine.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. 2 questions from me, please, Natasha. The first one's nice and easy. Who was the target audience, if you know, for that video or that clip?
I believe, so the video wasn't produced by us, but I believe it is for the likes of governance boards and people who were looking at becoming accredited communities, but it is on the website.
So it's about drawing in New Zealand participants to the program?
Yes,
okay.
It is a New Zealand program.
And my only other question is, it's still very early and we're only at the application stage, but is there plenty of scope and plenty of ability for us to customise something in the way of delivery going forward, and who we might invite to be partners in that space?
Absolutely, and you may have picked up from the video that it is very much around a local community response, and the key stakeholders will depend on who's in the community. We have already really good existing forums through the multicultural community, but also, as you would have seen there, there's a real importance, and it's quite vital that mana whenua are heavily involved. And I think that goes to the kind of the uniqueness of our local area and how we can demonstrate our community as welcoming. Yeah, so.
Thank you, that's awesome. No further questions.
Are there any other questions? No. Councillors, this is a decision of council, so the officer's recommendation, I'll be looking for a mover and a seconder. The recommendation is that Napier People and Places Committee A, make a decision of council under delegated authority to meet the Welcoming Communities application deadline, and B, approve that an application is made to the Welcoming Communities Te Waharoa Ki Ngā Hapori accreditation program. Is there a mover and a seconder, please? Deputy Mayor Brosnan, Councillor Tapine, would you like to speak to the recommendation?
Just very briefly, through you, Madam Chair, it seems like a good opportunity for us to access some central government funding that will enable us to further the strategy development and get some projects out there. And it's a great kaupapa, so yes, support. Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Tapine.
Just to add to the Deputy Mayor's comments, I'm looking forward to how this will enrich the tapestry of our community and bring more vibrancy and linkage, and make us as a council closer to our community and our community closer to one another. So this has potential to be great, so ka pai.
Any other comments? Right, Mayor Wise.
Yeah, very briefly through the chair. I know how keen the Multicultural Society have been for us to actually apply for this funding, so I'm thrilled that we are at this stage of the process, and as the Deputy Mayor stated, any funding we can get from central government will be gratefully received.
Right, we'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms Mackie. Right, moving on to item 3, the Napier War Memorial Restoration Project update. Thank you, Drew Brown, Senior Project Manager. Oh, he's Hewitt's disappeared. He's gone to the law.
Feel free to sing a song,
Excuse me, Chair. I just noticed that Les Hewitt was here, and I imagine that this is what he's here for.
Yes,
Do you mind if I just have a quick break to go and find him? Is that acceptable?
That would be great. Could we just hold for a minute, please?
No, that's there's a pole here.
It is.
Yeah. We can't start without you, Les. Thank you for being here. Right, over to our staff officers, please.
Kia ora, good morning. This report's just providing an update on the projects to date on the War Memorial restoration. The purpose of the report is that you just receive the update, and it's to bring you up to speed as to exactly where we're at with it. The last meeting that I recall for this project was the acceptance of the concept design. So this is to basically speak about the progress since that. We've now been through several stages of design, going from concept through preliminary, through developed. At each stage there's a review and inclusions of recommendations which go into the evolved next phase. And what we have finally received is the detailed design phase, which is basically our last phase of design. That's currently being reviewed and estimated by a QS. The QS's review has come in, and that is being evaluated at the moment. We have also managed to get to the stage where we have completed the assessment and the scope of works for the plaque restoration. That has been included in a tender. That tender has been to market, and we have received submissions on that, and we are currently evaluating those submissions. The next stages for the works are to complete all of our evaluations, to prepare our tender documentation, and to release tender to market for the build, to secure a build contractor. And also to award the contract for the plaque restoration and for that work to commence. Basically, where we're at the moment is we are at the end of all of our pre-build work, and we are just going into the tendering and contract phase to secure and start our physical works. Anything else? Steve? No? We have lodged our consent applications. We have a resource consent lodged. We are currently in the process of carrying out a boundary adjustment to ensure that we can get everything that is to be built on the new site. In the report, I've also mentioned some of our key milestones. And if you see our key milestones, we are aiming for a physical completion in early March of next year. That's where we're up to. We have a PowerPoint, which I just have here, which is a shortened version of what is in the report, and it also has some design excerpts from the major design, just to give you a level of the detail and where we're up to with that sort of work. So on the current status, in the final stages of design, tender documentation, detailed design estimates, plaque restoration works tendered, and the tender submissions under being evaluated, the resource consent application lodged, and the roll of honour names to be included are being researched and reviewed. Thank you, John. Sorry. Our next steps: complete the design review, engage the plaque restoration contractor, finish securing our consents, complete the tender process, engage the build contractor, and start the build. Key schedule milestones: detailed design sign-off. We're a little behind on that. We've had some COVID delays. Our build tender release, we're still on schedule with that. Build contract award, we're on schedule with that. This will also have to go through the tender review committee and through an evaluation process. I've been advised and probably think it's a very good idea if we invite an elected member to be an observer on that evaluation process. The clock return and install will be in January, with the physical completion early March. The remembrance features progressed from concept design to the detailed design, gone through all of those phases as discussed. Review and input has been from various other members and various other departments within council. So we've had some input from the depot, from the BAM team at all stages of the design. Each phase has been estimated by a QS, so we've had a good control of where we're going with the finances on it. And as I said, the detailed design is currently under review before it goes into the tender documentation and out to market. This is all the phases, all different phases that we've been through on the design: preliminary, developed, detailed. And well, this is now where we're up to with the level of detail that's going into the detailed design. I'll just go through a few of these. It's more for information than anything else, more for an appreciation of the level of design we're up to. This is all stuff that's been done by Stapleton Elliott, design group Stapleton Elliott, who was secured on a competitive process, and they're the ones who helped us with the concept design. If you recall, Chris was with us on that, Chris Ainsworth. This is some of the detailed design we're getting now for the hydraulics and for the gas and all the rest of it for the water features and the eternal flame features. This just shows us how we're going to fit it in with the plant rooms and the like in the existing building. Some of the lighting design, some of the steel works, some of our fire design, and then onto the plaque restoration work that we've done. We have Tracy Hartley from Salmon and Reed, who's helped us a lot on this. Tracy's an expert in restoration and conservation work on memorials. She's an advisor to the Ministry of Culture and Heritage. Tracy basically assisted us with doing an assessment and preparing our scope of works for tender. And she'll be helping us with the evaluation work as well. This is the kind of work that we've been able to put together with Tracy's help. So this basically talks about which different plaques we've got and the scope of work required for them. And that's gone into the tender documentation, and each of these plaques is now being costed by the potential contractors. Some of them, as you can see, are a little more detailed than others, require more work than others. This is just the site view as it is at the moment, and a rough idea as to what we're hopefully going to end up looking like.
Oh, thank you very much. Are there any questions? Yes, Ron, Councillor Christo.
Through the chair, I'm very conscious that another Anzac Day's gone past without our restoration happening. It's very dear to me and lots of people in our community. And so my question is, the timeline we've got is saying that it will be completed by next Anzac Day. How confident are you that this is going to happen? Because we get a lot of there's a lot of talk in the community, and a lot of people think that we are personally doing this ourselves. But I would like to, we really, really need to give our community confidence that this is going to happen.
In light of where we've just come from, in light of all the delays and all the impacts that we've recently had with COVID, it's worth knowing that any contractors out there who are of quality that we would desire are desired by many other people. And as such, their workloads are very, very high at the moment, and their workforces are very, very diminished at the moment. I think I would say that I was about as confident as anybody in any trade anywhere in New Zealand at the moment in saying that that's where they could meet.
Councillor Taylor.
It's probably in, through you, Madam Chair, similar vein. We've seen huge cost escalations in construction in the last couple of years, and I recall that we added $500,000 to this project to ensure that it wasn't undermined. How confident are you that we currently have sufficient in our budget for the completion of this work by Anzac Day 2023?
I'll refer to the project management iron triangle of time, quality and cost. If you want it done quickly to good quality, it's going to cost. And at the moment, that's where we're at. I have a cost estimate at the moment, which I haven't had the chance to fully review. And it's not until I've gone through that with a fine-tooth comb that I'll have any greater level of confidence than I do at the moment. But yes, you are correct. Escalation is great. If we want to get the people we want, then we will probably have to pay for it. And we may actually have to end up reviewing that budget or doing a value-add engineering exercise.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Drew. It's great to have an update on this project. As I think the previous speakers have said, it is a very, very important one. I have a couple of questions, particularly around the role of honour work, which I was involved in that working group that made a number of recommendations that Council adopted. So I see from your update that there has been a tender go out for that restoration work on the role. Have we accepted a tender?
Currently evaluating the tenders that we've received.
Thank you. And were there any amendments to the scope of works, I suppose, through the recommendations of council. So council had a number of recommendations they adopted on the roll of honour. Have they all seamlessly made their way into that tender document around how the plaques are to be treated, where recreations are made, etc., how initials are corrected if wrong, that sort of thing?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so 100% have kept with the recommendations of council.
The recommendations of council will be implemented with the tenderer, with the successful tenderer, yes.
Perfect. And I see in your written report there was meetings with families and persons have been held,
Yes.
who are obviously related to the names on the roll of honour. Is that work, is that a separate piece of tendered work, or is that an internal piece of work?
To date, that's been a little ad hoc. There's quite a few people through the RSA know me, and a lot of people have been given my name, and so they've been coming to me directly with can so-and-so be put on, is so-and-so on, and then I've been going in with those people and doing some research to try and work out where they should sit.
So moving forward, before we obviously get to the physical works being done on the plaque and the creation of the new plaques that will sit at the end with new names, is there a plan to make that less ad hoc? Because I note a huge amount of work was done by Charles. I know we've had some of our historians do work. We also have recommendations from council around advertising, etc., those names, and pulling that all back into the role, and there'll be a huge amount of research, I suppose, involved in doing that as well.
Yes.
There is a plan?
There is a plan.
Okay.
And we are getting some assistance from Wakarangapu and from Morahu's team, and that work has started already. In the plaque restoration work we have, and in the designs, we have the space for new plaques, and for the fresh names that may need to go on.
Okay, thank you. I will continue to grow my confidence in your plan. Through you, Madam Chair, a couple of other questions. So, similar, I suppose, to what Councillor Crystal said, aiming for that early March 2023. Have you looked to see if you can condense down any parts of the process? So say we're aiming for earlier, which gives us a bit more contingency, because it really would be
Absolutely.
very unpalatable not to make next Anzac Day.
Absolutely.
Okay. Lovely. And I did have one more, but I can't see it in my notes, so I might need to come back. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mayor Wise.
Thank you, and through the chair. I guess just a bit of a question of clarification, really, noting the high level of community interest that there has been in this project, and in particular the design. So obviously we presented the concept design to the community, and it was very well received, and I'm just seeking some reassurance that as we've moved through the phases of design to the detailed design that is about to be signed off, that really just has been about drilling down into the detail of the technical components and the build, and how the whole thing will physically be built, as opposed to there being any significant or changes to the visual appearance of what has been presented to the community previously. So just, that reassurance that what we've shown them in the past, but visually, is still what they're getting.
Absolutely it is.
Yeah, thank you.
The difference between the concept design and what we have now, it will still look exactly the same as what we saw in the concept design. And the only difference is that in the detailed design, we can now tell you how much water goes in the pond. We can tell you what lux levels there will be, where the seats will be, what depth the foundations will be.
Fabulous, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Wise. Councillor Tapine.
Sorry, no questions for me.
Okay. Councillor Simpson.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at the finances, and Councillor Taylor has already reminded us that a further $500,000 was added previously. $500,000 is approximately, or just short of 1% of rates if we're paying for this in cash. I appreciate this will be capitalised, so it'll be loan funded and put out over time, I assume. My curiosity really comes down to, I can't actually recall what budget we set for this work, and while I absolutely agree that we need to end up with a quality product, I can't recall what budget we set and therefore I'm now having difficulty understanding how we're tracking. We've added more to it, and I just wonder whether we can just be updated on the budget that was provided, how we're tracking with spending, and what this might ultimately look like. And I'm fully aware, having sat on the tenders committee, that it'll be subject to the price that contractors put in, but I just want to make sure that we're keeping this project fiscally responsible.
Would it be possible, when this comes back for sign-off on the 2nd of June at our council meeting, would it be possible for those figures to be made available at that stage, or earlier if possible, but certainly for the public as part of accepting the report on the 2nd of June at the council meeting? Would that be okay?
Thank you,
Councillor
Madam Chair.
Simpson? Thank you. Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you. I found my final question. Drew, there were a number of, I suppose, final tweaks to be made after concept design, once it, I suppose, left the working group's hands. So, and I'm conscious that a number of those were the artistic ones, so the inclusion of artwork, etc. And there was also a desire for those not to be kind of tack-ons at the end and integrated into the design. Could you give us an update, I suppose, on the integration of artworks?
A lot of the work that we've been doing with the RSA has revolved around some of those artworks. We now have some culture inclusion as well. We have part of the design now includes Māori stone. It includes the Waharoa. We have inclusion as well of sites to hang the different services plaques. The sighting for the flags has all been assisted with through the RSA. We also have a plan to put in a delineation for footpath in the form of brickwork in the granite, and that'll be etched with campaigns and battles and things like that. So those kind of features are complementary to what we already have, but won't alter the overall appearance.
Thank you, that's great to hear. And just in terms of those additions that council, I suppose, haven't seen in a detailed form since concept, is there a plan for a approval step or a gateway of final design through council, or are we just moving straight into tender?
My understanding had been to move straight into tender.
Thank you.
Right, are there any other questions? Thank you. Very good.
Sorry, just through the chair, and I guess just to sort of follow on from the Deputy Mayor's question, I have a complete level of comfort around the fact that detailed design is not coming back to us, because we've had the reassurance that the actual physical and visual appearance of what we have already signed off on is still what we're delivering. And personally, I don't need to see the detail of every nut, screw and bolt. I'll leave that to the experts.
Thank you. Thanks. Right, the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Boak, just one more question. Sorry. One of the questions that came, sorry, through the chair. One of the questions that came up was just looking at that picture there, Drew.
Yes.
To me, it looks like the front door is now the alternate door, rather than like the front door's been blocked off there. Can you please confirm that?
That's merely a rendering from the concept design phase.
Yep. So I guess that in the detailed design was kind of...
Yeah, the main entrance looking like a garage door is not correct. It will not be like that.
That will still be the main entrance?
It will still be the main
Thank
entrance.
you.
And I know there was some concern about delineation on that. So yes, I understand your question. Can I just say that if anyone does wish to see a set of the detailed designs, then that's this pile of information here.
We're used to that.
Thank you very much, and thanks for your presentation. It was very comprehensive. The officer's recommendation is for this committee to receive the update provided on the Napier War Memorial Restoration Project. So, Mayor Wise will move and Councillor Crown second. Would you like to speak to it?
I'll just thank you for the update and looking forward to moving forward as quickly as possible.
Councillor Crown?
Thank you, Madam Chair. you're really happy to support this, and thank you for the update. I just wanted to touch on the fact that we also have a number of other reports that are coming to us on a regular basis, which include an update on this project. So we have our newly established CE report, and we have our significant projects program of works, which is reported on as Sustainable Napier. So I'm really confident that given the COVID environment, etc., that those should be the only delays to this project, that it won't be decision making, or it won't be lack of our input that will slow this down in any way. So yeah, fantastic to see it coming along, and yeah, hope that it can be delivered a little earlier than perhaps the timeline that has been presented to us today. Thank you.
Any other comment? Right, I'd like to put the officer's recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. Carried. Thank you very much for that report. Our next item is our update on the civic building demolition, and we have Darren Gillies, who's the Community Service Project Manager, to report to us on that. Do you want to sit here or sit there? Okay.
Morena Koto. Hi, morning, councillors. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to give an update on the civic building demolition. So this is yet another of our kind of high-profile projects that, as elected members, you want to see some progress on. And the key kind of milestone before this got moving again was the library and civic area plan that was adopted by council in December, which confirmed that if we want to progress with the library building, that the civic building needs to be demolished, and that is what we've been progressing. The key to that was to move the expertise that we're working on that master plan project into this particular project so we could speed that up and find the right elements so we could de-risk the project. Because as Drew's been talking about, the construction industry is a challenging market at the moment, so we need to make sure that we can get on it and do that. So we undertook some initial reports around asbestos, structural engineering reports, and also looking at all the other requirements that we could go out to a thorough RFP process, which we have now begun. So we are in that process of accepting tenders, and that will be closed on the 12th of May. And I'm pleased to report that we have a lot of interest in this particular work. We took around up to nearly 10 contractors on site yesterday for a visit, so to give them an opportunity to look at that work, which was probably our biggest concern. Would there be capacity in the market to get on and do this work? But with having that many people, that many high-vis and safety boots marching through the old building yesterday, gave us a high level of reassurance that we can get this done and on our timeline. So we go into reviewing the RFP in the middle of May, and hopefully we will be appointing a preferred person to get on with contracting that work out to begin work in June, July. We also, as you'll see in the report, looking to do a certain amount of our own salvage from that building, including the kind of two key pieces, which is the artwork that face east from on the top of the civic building. There's also the time capsule. So they were both decisions of council. So we are looking to, within that tender, remove those pieces into a safe storage. The challenging one of the two is actually the artwork, just due to the sheer size of it and the fact that it was originally an advertising hoarding. So we will be doing an assessment of that particular artwork once it's removed to see what its condition actually is and how we can best store it. Usually you would remove it from its stretcher, but we'll evaluate that once it's down. The time capsule's complicated, but not as complicated, so that would be created up and stored somewhere safe until possibly the Faraday Centre or another venue is found for it to live in. And then once this building is down, then we need to start the assessment of the library tower to kind of evaluate for part 2 of the master plan. So that's essentially where we're at. We're at the procurement stage. That's going well, and if all things go well, we'll start to see some more activity on that site July, August.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Are there any questions? Councillor Brown.
Just picking up on what you said there around storing the art piece, that sounds complicated, and I wondered, have we looked at maybe just finding it a new home before we move it? Speaker.
Through the chair, yes, there was a piece of work done to try and find a new site for it. Sinzar, who was part of that process when it went up, has been involved. Fleur Lincoln has been working with him to find another site for that particular one that's appropriate. Looking east is one of the key elements of where that artwork should be. That's the concept of it. So that's one of the challenges, is finding a building of the size that can do that correctly. So we'll need to probably come back if that's a challenge. So there has been some work done there, but probably more work needs to be done. But probably after we've done a full conditioning report of it once it's down.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you, Darren, for all your work in getting it to this stage. Just a question around, I suppose the community will be excited to see the building come down and all of the work around that, but then we have a period of possibly up to 18 months where we have a bare site, and I see the drawings there, I think on our page 131 on what we'll be left with. So just a question looking at that concept, where we say site hoardings around the outside, that's not an intention to put up barricades to the bulk of the site with hoardings like a construction zone as such, is it?
So we spec'd in the RFP probably the highest spec, sorry, through the chair, forwarding that we can to use it for storytelling or for opportunity for marketing if required. So we'll do the most visually pleasing that we can. It's also probably the safest option as well, because we are worried obviously about things like vandalism, breaking into the site. So we spec'd it to the highest provision that we can, so it's not your classic chainmail approach.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand if we are sectioning off that big area.
It will be sectioned off. It will be sectioned off. In the tendering process, the preferred vendor may come back with other suggestions on how big that site is. So we've offered what we think it is using the architectural drawings, but with the demolition expertise, they might offer a different solution, but we spec it to the highest way possible to give us flexibility to make it as attractive as possible.
Just flagging, I think the last conversations I had about this site, and I see some of, the turf and the interactive space around the edge being proposed, but the last conversations I had was with that it would all be open as such, because it is for a longer period of time, and we don't want to, I'm just concerned that we give the impression that something's going to happen tomorrow if we have it fenced off like a construction zone. So just flagging, I think we do need to be a little bit flexible with how we use that space, because I know our city vitalisation team are keen to potentially use it for pop-ups and stuff like that as well.
Through the chair, yeah, absolutely. So Georgina King is part of the RFP review team. Steph Kennard's also been involved as well, so they will have a huge input in how we use that edge to that site going forward.
Perfect, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Right. The officer's recommendation is to receive this report. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please?
Happy to move.
Councillor Crystal moved, seconded Deputy Mayor Brosnan. All those in favour, do you want to speak to it? Councillor Crystal?
Just great to see this progressing. It's moving at a good pace, and we get lots of questions about what's happening, so it'll be really quite exciting to actually see something happening on the site. And then the library being built eventually. Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Brosnan?
No, just to, I suppose, indicate that the next stage in this process is the development of the business case that council will see, and the design of the library building, which will have a huge amount of community input as well. So looking forward to, reaching all of our next milestones on this. It's great to see it moving.
Any other comments? Right, we'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those against say no. The recommendation is carried. Thank you very much, Mr. Gillese. The last item on our public agenda is the Napier Library's winter and summer reading programs. Oh, oh, thank you. Nicola and Kate. Thank you very much. You're presenting this item. Over to you.
Tēnā koutou katoa, kua kare piri mai nei ki tēnei hui ki te matapaki I te hōtaka pānui takuroa me raumati. E tika ana me matahere ki te kahika o te kaunihera o Ahurere, me nā kai kauniahera, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. He kai te aki puka puka tamariki ahau, ki ahuriri me o tātara hoki, ko Kate Powatoko Ingoa, ko Nicola Saunders, kai whahaere, whare puka puka tēnei. So welcome everybody to this hui to discuss the winter and summer reading programs. And I'd like to acknowledge the Mayor of Napier, Madam Chair and councillors and all. I'm a children's librarian for Napier and Taranara Libraries. I'm Kate Powis and this is Nicola Saunders, the library manager. So in 2021, Napier Libraries delivered our first tailor-made reading programs. We rebranded our summer reading programs to Ngā Kai Pānui Pounamu, Treasure Readers for aged 4 to 10, and Ngā Kai Pānui Taohi, Chiefs of Reading for ages 10 plus. And both also had a whakatauki attached to them. Overall, we had 300 plus tamariki register with whānau day out packages, book vouchers and books as prize incentives. We were also able to bring the well-received Story Walk project to Ahuriri for the first time, which linked in with the Aotearoa native bird theme of our reading programs. We delivered successful and rewarding programs to our community with the funding we had received from the Eastern and Central Community Trust. This will be the last year that Eastern and Central Community Trust will allow libraries to apply for financial assistance with little limitation. I'm here today to seek approval for external funding again from Eastern and Central Community Trust to allow us to continue delivering successful and well-received programs. This will also keep up the consistency of community expectations and keep tamariki up with their reading, as well as being able to take our programs into lower socioeconomic areas such as Maraenui and Mariwa. Our programs continue to link in with our strategies of focusing on early literacy and integrating community collaborators, partnering with our community in our community. Young people want more free or low-cost events, and this funding will also assist with this. So let's carry on instilling the love of reading into our community. Therefore, your approval would be greatly appreciated. Ngā mihi. Just please note as well, so aroha mai, there is a slight update to the report. So instead of theming our winter reading program around Napier suburbs like we did last year, Te Hōtaka Pānui, the winter reading program will be a Matariki theme, and the tamariki will read their way around Te Iwa o Matariki. Thank you.
Kia ora, thank you. Are there any questions, Councillor Crown?
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. I'm not sure whether to look at you guys up there on the screen or whether it's going to be a pātai for someone in the room to be able to answer. But it seems like fantastic value and really widely, people are taking up this opportunity with this reading program. And I'm actually wondering, beyond the time frame here and the application, what plans are being made to be able to continue to deliver this service for the community, given that they are so attached to it, so past this time period?
Through the chair, there was additional budget put in for the upcoming years in the LTP to carry on this planning. We knew that Eastern and Central were reviewing their funding model, and we started to build provision to do so.
Fantastic, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? Right, once again, councillors, this is a decision of council. So the decision of council is that under delegated authority, make a decision of council under delegated authority for the council to enable the funding application to the Eastern and Central Community Trust be submitted and processed this final year, and approve the external funding application of $19,000 to Eastern and Central Community Trust for the Napier Library's 2022-23 winter and summer reading programs. May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Crown, seconded Councillor McGrath. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor Crown?
Thank you. Just briefly, as I said, it's just wonderful to see such a worthy and worthwhile program be attended so well and picked up by our community. Great to see tamariki, getting into books and reading, and to see us being able to offer events and free free activities for those younger members of our community to get involved in. So yeah, it seems like a no-brainer to me.
Thank you. Councillor McGrath, would you like to speak to it?
Absolutely, thank you. It's good, I'll throw the youth lens across this. Over the years, I've actually been invited to the awards ceremonies that the libraries had with their reading programs, and the number of kids who have, worked really hard and just really love and enjoy these programs. So I just fully support it.
Excellent. Any other comments? Cool. Well, I'd like to put the officer's recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against say no. The recommendation is carried. Thank you very much for your presentation and all the best.
Thank you.
That was the final number in our open agenda for the People and Places Committee. Oh, there's no minor matters, so we will adjourn the People and Places Committee now for the open, prosperous Napier Committee meeting.